Okay, so we're going to start on A. And the thing about foundation paper piecing is that you're actually going to put the fabric on this side, but you'll sew on this side. And the first piece we need is A1. So I've pressed out some of my fabric, and I can be pretty, it all depends on how much fabric you have as to how like generous you want to be to yourself, or how scrappy you need to be with the amount of fabric you use. So I'm going to just use a big old chunk for this first one. And the thing about the first piece is it always goes face up. So this has little snowflakes on it. And so it's going to go face up on our foundation. And I want to make sure it is squarely over my A1 area, which it is. And so now I need some red for A2. So I'm going to come over here, and I cut off a little chunk of A fabric, and I'll go ahead and snip some to make sure it is roughly the size I need. That has selvage on it. I'll use it in a different area, so this looks good. And then what we'll do is when I flip this over, if you have a light box is wonderful. Otherwise, just a bright light will do as well. We are going to put the red so that when we fold it this way, it is going to cover up that area. So I'm going to place my red like this. I'll hold it up to the light and make sure it is well over the line that I'm going to be sewing, which is this one right here. Sure enough, it is. So now it's time to go to the sewing machine. All right. So I'm going to line up my needle right on that little intersection, and we'll get going. All right. And you want to sew past a little bit, because that's going to help you in the long run with when you put all of the various sections together. Okay, now let's see what we did here. I'm going to trim out this thread. And then what we've done is we've made this red, so when we fold it, it's going to fold and cover that section right there, which we can just tell it does. And so the next thing that we need to do is trim our seam allowance. So I'm going to fold back my piece of paper, and most people, you can do, a 1/4 inch. I am probably going to do 1/8 of an inch, just because the details in this block are pretty fine. So I'll trim like that. And this excess was cut off, leaving 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. And I now want to press this open. Now, some people finger press and they go on to the next piece. I've got my iron right here. So I am going to just take a moment and press it. Remember, quilting is all about pressing. Still, even after all these years, I find myself wanting to iron things. There's definitely a difference. So now we've got A1 and A2 we follow the instructions and it says to do A3 next. In my case, that's that gray fabric I decided to go with, and I just need an itty bitty piece for that corner. So I'll do that now. Let's see. Now I cut it in a triangle, I don't have to. It can be a chunk of anything. And I'm just gonna hold it up to the light and make sure it's gonna cover. It absolutely will. Now, if I were to sew like this, that would be a travesty. I've done that 1,002 times. So what you need to do is remember you're flipping it, making sure that you've got plenty of fabric where you need it. Here's my little corner, so, all right. I'm gonna check it one more time. Yep. And so I'm just gonna stitch across this. Once again, I'm going to trim this little thread, and then I'll trim my seam allowance first. All right. Then I'm going to just finger press and test, make sure I really did get it in the right spot. I sure did. See that A3? It's covered up nicely by this gray. So it's time to press it, and we'll just continue like this through all 3 sections. We aren't going to piece the sections to each other quite yet.